All right, so what's up, everybody? My name is Trent McPherson. I'm an intern at NAMI Pitt County, and welcome to the men's mental health event. Well, it's not really an event; it's more like a discussion because I don't really want to call it an event, um, because I want it to be more like an open discussion with us four, and then also the chat. So if anybody, anytime in the chat wants to get involved, please do. Seriously, please do. You're not discouraged, you're encouraged. It's a discussion for everybody. We all have our own experiences and we want to hear everybody's stories. So please, please, please speak up if you um, get the courage to. All right, and whoever wants to take it away, you can go ahead and introduce yourself.
What's going on? My name is Sean Young. I am a person in long-term recovery. So what that looks like for me is I haven't put a substance in my body since December 27th, December 7th, 2019. Because of that, because of recovery, it gave me my life back. It gave me a happy, joyous, free life, and I'm able to use my experience um, from life and help others to recover from whatever addiction or mental health disorder that they're working through. And I'm honored to be here. I'm absolutely honored and privileged to be here. And I'm a podcaster, among other things. So, I mean, yeah. Next, who wants to go next?
Go ahead,
Uh,
Derek.
okay, cool. My name is Derick J. Fields, veteran um, in recovery. April 10th was 2 years for me without putting any substances in my body. Thank you, brother, and congrats to you too, Sean, for your recovery journey and your recovery time. If you have a day, um, we take our hats off to you. That's clean time. That's important. I'm a podcaster as well, author, speaker, business owner, and a man of faith. I do believe in God. That's you'll hear a lot about that from me in some aspects. But yeah, that's me in a nutshell, and I think we'll get into even more about who I am as this show goes on. So thank you.
My name is Chris. I'm also another podcaster as well. My podcast is Voice of the Voiceless. Also, the creator of the mental health movement Facebook group. I'm a fellow warrior, survivor of two attempts, and just fighting every day, trying to spread the message of mental health and just trying to be that beacon of light for those still in darkness.
Awesome. Appreciate you guys. And also, thanks for joining. I really appreciate all of you. It means a lot that you guys took time out of your day to do this, so I appreciate it.
Yeah, man, I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you. This is important.
So, I just want to share a quick PowerPoint. It's only 8 slides, so it's not going to be too boring. So don't worry about that. Um, just want to share that with you guys real quick. Okay, can you guys see my screen? You can see the PowerPoint, right?
Yes.
Yes,
Yep.
sir.
Yep.
So I just want to talk about some of the things that we're going to be talking about later today. It's going to be quick because a lot of this is, like I said, stuff that we're going to talk about later when we have like an open discussion. But I just want to kind of introduce it to you so you can get a idea of what we're going to be talking about. So we're going to be talking about stigma. We know this is one of the biggest things preventing people in general and also men, particularly men, in terms of like getting healthier, getting help. Um, I think for me personally, this was one of the biggest obstacles that I had to get over because, growing up, I was always taught that, especially like how I grew up, I was always taught that, I had to be tough. I had to like, if something ever happened to my family, I needed to be the person to take care of my mom and all the people that needed to be taken care of. So this for me was one of the biggest things that I had to get over. I'm not sure if the other people, anybody else can relate, but um, that alone was, once I was able to get over that, that just sent me, that catapulted my mental health recovery just so far. And you know, we all need somebody to talk to, and for men, it's kind of hard to you know, reach out. But like I said, for me is that was the biggest issue. Once I got over that, that is what you know, led me down the healthier lifestyle. So another thing, we're going to talk about depression. You know, depression is a lot of people experience it, but there's been studies that show that men are, even though women have higher statistics in showing signs of depression, men actually experience it quietly more. And I think that also plays into the role of stigma, where men just like don't say anything. You know, they're like, I'll be all right. I just got to get through this. You know, they don't go and get help. They don't say anything. So yeah, we're also going to be talking about anxiety and stress, something we all feel. Another thing we're going to be talking about is substance abuse, which is huge for men in mental health, and also PTSD, which is another really big topic, and also suicide prevention, which is again another big topic. These are all pretty much the leading issues in men's mental health we're going to be talking about, and yeah, that's pretty much it. I didn't want to read too much of the slides because I didn't want it to be too wordy. Because, like I said, I want this to be a discussion, and I want anybody in the chat to please speak up whenever you want and share your story if you feel like it. So yeah, that's pretty much it. If we want to start the discussion, where do you guys want to start? Do you want to start with sharing your stories? Do you want to start with talking about a certain aspect of mental health? It's completely up to you guys. Yep. If anybody wants.
So, just want to before we like dive too deep into anything, just kind of like a side note, I just kind of want to add it into this discussion. Was I feel one of the biggest hurdles that we run into when it comes to trying to talk about men's mental health is we're in a society where when we try to talk about men's mental health, it's like, oh, more than women, where you know, more men do this or more men have this over women. I feel as somebody who is a man and struggles every day with depression and the things that I go through, if you want to openly talk about something and have a discussion about it, you know, it's not. I think just going about it in terms of trying to compare, I guess, what women go through opposed to what men go through, just kind of like counterpoints what you're trying to spread as a message. So I feel it's important to note that while the statistics and the facts are there that men may take their life more than women, I feel it's important to say, okay, men and women struggle with depression, men and women struggle with suicide, and we need to do something about it instead of it just, we have this more than this. You know what I mean? If that makes sense.
No, that makes, I 100% agree with that. 100%. Sean, I think you're muted.
Yeah, I think you're on,
God
Sean.
damn it, this happens all the time. Anyways, this is a common occurrence, y'all. This is going to happen more than once. Anyways, I think it's really, you know, in that aspect, is comparing apples and oranges, right? Because men and women, although we have some of these same things, we deal with things completely differently, you know. And so I do agree with Chris.
Yeah, I'm. It's a conversation to have. It's not a measuring contest. It's not to mine is worse than yours.
Right.
That's not helping anybody. It's, oh wow, you dealt with that too? Man, how did you get through that? How did you survive that? How did you cope through that? That's what we're trying to get to, is different solutions, resolutions, and resources that can aid us in our recovery in all aspects of life. So I agree.
The biggest defense that we can put up against other people and get other people defensive is when you start comparing. And I think that's what we have to avoid, is comparing, you know, because like I said, it's apples and oranges.
I
Yeah,
definitely feel like social media plays a big part in that too, because you know, you go on TikTok and you get into that rabbit hole of those videos of, women saying men don't have this, and then men saying women don't have that, and it counterpoints, spreading a message that we're all trying to support. It's not a competition. Trauma shouldn't be compared, and it shouldn't be a competition saying, I have a broken leg, you have a sprained ankle, mine's worse than yours. But, it shouldn't be like that.
100% agree.
I think it shouldn't be a comparison. I don't know if you guys can hear me. I'm on my cell phone driving right now.
Yeah, we can hear you.
But I feel like we have to be treated different because men and women are apples to oranges. They're inherently different. We're raised different and have different expectations that society expects out of us and what we expect out of ourselves. So if you could talk about men's mental health and separate the two, because women's mental health might be treated a little different than men's mental health is, like treatment-wise and what, we all go through.
Yeah, I agree. And that's one thing I wanted to talk about with you guys is kind of what he was saying, how like we're all treated differently in society. So do you guys think that societal roles are good for mental health or bad for mental health?
I think it's bad for mental health. I just feel, speaking, as the woman on the chat here, I just feel like for some reason, like you guys are totally right. Men and women, we have different, ways of coping and dealing with things. But I just feel like you guys do have it rough because you are in a like one of those things where, oh, I'm a man, I gotta just rub some dirt on it and get over it. You know what I mean? Like a lot of people feel like, oh, that guy was are we allowed to cuss?
Yes.
Yeah, say whatever
Was
you
a pussy. You know what I mean? Like I don't want. I didn't know if I was able to cuss, but I just like like I just agree with it. I feel like everybody's human, men, women, however you identify yourself, we all have emotions, we all have feelings, we all cope. We can cope differently, but there's nothing wrong with a man expressing his emotions. It doesn't make him less of a man. It doesn't make him, oh my God, he's a woman. Oh my God. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like society does have a big effect on how men's mental health has been.
You want to know why that is? It starts at home.
Yes.
Everything starts at home. Okay, so my son be 15 and my daughter be 21. So listen, so my dad was a different generation of guy. So him showing love might not be like sit me down and be like, hey Derick, I love you. I put food, you got clothes, you got a roof, you don't want for anything. Okay. I take that to another level. I do the same thing, but at the same time, I tell my son I love him. I kiss him. I hug him. I'm changing that learned behavior that I had as a child from, okay, I see my dad loves me. And it took me a while to get to that point. I see how my dad says he loves me. And now today we're better because of he's stable, I'm stable, and now we can say I love you and I love you too, Dad, and I love you, Derick. But I had to change it. If I wanted to see change, it had to start at my home. It had to start in my house. So I think that's one thing that society misses is if you want the change in the next generation, it starts at home.
Absolutely, I agree.
Absolutely.
That generational trauma of fathers treating their sons like shit, and I'm sorry, you'll hear that part in my story. Sons getting treated like shit, and then perpetuating that later on in life to their kids, and then
Right.
that kid grows up and perpetuates that. It's that generational trauma being passed down over time, and it's just that's something that we have to stop.
Just to add to Derick's point of it starts at home. I think it's also important to note the kids that go through like their parents being divorced at a very young age. Like my parents got divorced at 8 years old, and 8 years old, you're about to go into middle school soon, and you think that your parents are divorcing because of something you did, and constant fighting and constant moving and stuff, and then whatever cycle that was created through that broken relationship, it kind of gets drilled into that kid's head. Like, like just to share a little piece of my story on this subject, but just having to constantly be strong even when I was struggling because I'm a guy. We don't talk about our feelings. We don't talk about the fact that I felt suicidal for most of my childhood. We don't talk about that stuff. We had to internalize it. And when you grow older, I didn't see a therapist until I was 27 years old, and I'm almost 31 now. And I feel it's important to spread that awareness on kids just as adults, because like Derick said, it starts at home, and it can start at a very young age, and a lot of those kids don't show how much that impacts them until like teen years.
So let me ask you guys something. Would you agree that, or would you say that childhood trauma is the number one predictor in mental health issues when someone gets
Yes,
into an adult?
Yeah.
I agree.
100%.
Yeah. You're learning at a young age, you're learning who to trust and the foundations of trust. And if you don't have a solid foundation of trust, then you become an adult and you start to default trust to other people, or just don't trust people at all. It's complete extremes.
It's a it's an empathy process, and what I mean by that is, once I had to take a look at when I was in a 45-day veterans program, and I was doing I forgot what the treatment was called. It's stuff that combat vets do, and they process trauma, and you put a name to it. Then you take the power from it. I forgot what it's called, but anyway, once I came out, I was very pissed off at my dad. I was pissed off at my dad for a long time because I didn't recognize that, like we said, that generational curse happened to him. He had childhood trauma, and then he had combat trauma, being a veteran of Desert Storm. So I had to be like, So I'm walking out, and I had a very good relationship with this behavioral tech named T. And T was like, come here. I know you mad at your daddy, but you hurt people too. I was like, damn, she was right. So I had to have empathy, not to a degree that I am justifying the behavior that my dad did, because he was kind of rough. He was rough, but I could empathize because I've been rough to people. Not justifying what he did was right, but I could understand if, as a man, as a black man in America, didn't have, though, in the 60s, dealing with all of that, seeing his dad go through, his adopted dad, because his mother didn't want him, didn't know his daddy, then he had to go to the military too. Rough. What's PTSD? Don't know. They called it shell shock. So I had to empathize for me. Hey, okay, I can see why he was the way he was before an intervention happened. And I'll talk more about that because, again, like I said, I'm a man of faith as well. So I saw that change on that side, because I do believe it's not just mental and physical, it's spiritual health. But anyway.
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought that up because that's something that me and you talked about, and I can definitely relate with because you know that's one thing that really helped me get a better relationship with my dad is understanding like the things that he's been through, and he's been through a lot, and kind of like how you said, like once you go back and realize like what he's been through, and that kind of makes him how he is, it makes it easier to forgive him, because like you, I did not like I hated my dad. I mean, I'm not afraid to say I hated my dad. Seeing him beat up me, my brothers, my mom, like I really wanted to hurt my dad for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And but I just one time I went to visit him, and I went to visit like his family, because I had gotten some trouble, and I finally realized like why he is the way he is just off of how his family treated him. I mean, I met his mom, and his mom wanted nothing to do with him. His dad is not around. He was raised by his grandma, and she passed away when I was a young kid. So seeing him get abandoned by his own family, I'm sure that messed him up as a kid, and then he was involved in the streets. So I think I'm glad that you brought that up because that's definitely a big point in healing is understanding other people's trauma and trying to forgive them for the trauma that they put on you. So yeah, I think that was a great point.
There's also I wanted to add to the childhood trauma comment as well because I feel it's important to recognize abuse being a really big factor in that generational cycle that is passed up from our parents to us and affects us when we're adults. Like for me, when I started therapy, I heard the word abuse, and not to say that it's an overused word, but I feel people use certain words in the mental health community that kind of like watered down the definitions of like narcissist. The amount of times I've heard the word narcissist and gaslighting in the last 3 years, it almost has no meaning anymore because it's just like, okay, from somebody who has a very toxic mother and was a very abusive mother, it's just kind of like me talking about my story and hearing that word every other day just kind of feels like there's no meaning behind it. But for the longest time, I didn't know I was abused. I didn't know there was mental abuse or emotional abuse until I started therapy and being able to recognize all those generational cycles that were passed up from her parents up to me. And unfortunately, that relationship's still broken. I don't think it's ever going to be fixed. And I'm at that point in my life where I'm okay with that, just for the simple fact that I need to honor my inner child and honor my boundaries in terms of healing. So the childhood trauma thing, I think abuse is a really gigantic factor in the healing process too, when you can recognize that you were abused.
Yeah, you made a great point there. And that's something I can relate with. How you said that you didn't even recognize that you were going through abuse until you went to therapy, and that's something that I also experienced because like I was kind of similar to you, how you said like there are things that like you don't even know that are really affecting your mental health, that you don't even know that they're there until somebody talks to you about it. Because like you're either shoving it so deep down or you're just not acknowledging it at all. And then when somebody finally says something to you, like somebody that you trust, it's like it just opens up a whole can of worms. And that's why if there's anybody watching that has not been to therapy, I strongly recommend it because it's so beneficial to your mental health. And like there are a lot of things that affect your mental health, spiritual and physical health. And sometimes people just don't even realize it until they have somebody to talk to about it. And somebody that's been through things. So yeah.
I want to
And
add
just
to that.
to
Oh, go ahead, Chris.
I was just going to say, and just to add to the therapy comment as well, I always just try to make it a point to just mention that therapy is not for everybody, just because either somebody doesn't want to put in the work that therapy requires you to do, to dig within yourself to be able to heal. But try to like keep an open mind. I know plenty of friends who have gone through several therapists and then just kind of gave up because unfortunately, we live in a world where there are people in that profession that aren't 100% dedicated to that craft. And sorry to say, but looking for a paycheck. I have myself run into a therapist like that. And I feel if you're wanting to heal and you're wanting to peel back all the toxic skin that you're wearing from your childhood trauma, I 100% agree with you, Trenton. Therapy has changed my life in the best possible way, but it's not for everybody. There's different ways of healing, and I put therapy number one for me. Absolutely.
Yeah, I was going to say the exact same thing. Well, similar to it is a process. There are people, there are therapists and counselors out there that are there for a check. They will go through the motions, and they won't have that humanity that you're looking for. It's not for everyone, but I say don't. I would suggest just don't give up. And if you are looking for a therapist, look for someone that has your same values, morals, and beliefs. That helps out a lot. That can make a big difference, especially if you're coming from a like myself. If I'm looking for a therapist, I'm looking for a faith-based therapist, someone that has a higher power, someone who believes in God. I need that. I just couldn't. It wouldn't make no sense to me to go to a therapist that doesn't have a belief system in God. It just wouldn't do me any good because we wouldn't connect on things in that regard. So it is a process. Don't give up. Um, look, try local support groups. Talk group therapy is really, really good because sometimes, like y'all said, you might not even know, like Chris said, or even Trenton, you might not know that you've been abused until you talk about it, or you might not even know you've been abused until you hear about it. Like, damn, you went through that? Me too. That's wrong. Yeah, that's wrong. My wife shared with me one time. She's a recreational therapist, and she does both substance and psych. And she said there's one girl in the connotations of her was getting abused in a very graphic way, and I don't want to use that word. So grape. She didn't know it was wrong until she heard it from someone else that it was wrong. So yeah, just to buffer y'all point, y'all are absolutely right. You don't know until you know. And if you know, tell.
Yeah, that's right. I agree, especially with the group therapy thing. Before I started seeing a therapist, that was huge for me. Not necessarily group therapy, but just finding a person, as in a friend, that I could talk to. Because sometimes well, for me, it took a lot to really go to a therapist. You know, like go out of my house, go to an office, sit down, talk to somebody. That took a lot. It was a lot more comfortable for me at first to just talk to one of my friends, and then that led into like bigger groups, on campus faith groups, whatever it is. For me, that's what it was, but that helped out a lot for me until I was able to get enough strength and courage to actually go see a therapist. But kind of like Derek was saying, I definitely recommend like trying to find a group because that can be really helpful. Even just hearing other stories, if you don't speak up, like it's really really beneficial.
Yeah, I I was hunting around for a counselor back when I first started recovery. I went to the VA, fucked around, Derek, and went to the VA.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. I got parroted. How does that make you feel? Well, it makes me angry because you're sitting here parroting me. But anyways, no, I ended up finding a counselor that was a veteran, and he was also in recovery. So like to me, it was like you are the golden goose, my friend. And then he stopped his practices, and I was back to square one. But anyways, no, you find somebody that you work with, and that works for you, and everything will be great.
Yeah. So does anybody want to like share their story? Um, if you're not comfortable with sharing everything, it's up to you guys. But
Yeah,
I'm kind of interested. I want to hear a little bit more about y'all's story.
yeah, I can go first if y'all don't mind.
Yeah, man.
Go
All
for
right.
it.
All right. So, like I said before, and you guys can see on the screen, my name is Sean. I am a person in long-term recovery, like I said before. My story of trauma really starts, probably at the age of 2 or 3. And for the first 4 years of my life, I didn't know my dad. He left my mom. And when he came back into my life, it's kind of like, oh shit, my dad, right? So I ended up trying to form this bond with my dad, but I just didn't know how to reach him. Right? He was a heavy drinker. And my first bit of trauma I remember seeing is walking downstairs. We lived in this apartment in Hyattsville, Maryland, which isn't too far from where I'm at now. And walked down into the kitchen, and he's bent over the sink with a knife in his back. I never witnessed any violence before that, and so that kind of always stuck with me in the back of my mind and my subconscious. And so to see your like somebody that you project as a hero wounded really fucked me up. A little later on in life, when I was about the age of 4, I was splashing around in the bathroom, in the bathtub, and Dad walks in. He sees me making a mess. He pulls me out and beats my ass with a belt bare. I'm still wet and everything. And because of that situation, and because of a few other things, my sister and I were taken away from my mother and my father. That situation sparked this unhealthy fear of my father. Started out right at a young age, right? So I didn't know how to trust people. I didn't understand the concept of trust. I gave my trust blanket to everybody, and then I expected that things would come in return for me, but it never really did. So we get put in a foster care system, and about 6 months in the foster care system with a family, we end up getting removed from the home and given to my grandparents, who are on my dad's side. And so now my dad has access to my sister and I at his own will. Whenever he wants, he can come and go. And there was many times where that fear was elevated to a new level. And then at the age of 10, my father got custody of my sister and I and took us up to Erie, Pennsylvania. Erie, Pennsylvania is like equidistance in between New York and Ohio, just for reference, right on the lake. And we end up living with him. And my dad, like I said before, was an alcoholic, and he was drinking really heavily. He was a truck driver. He was on the road. When he would come home, his anger would be directed at my sister, who was probably 3 years younger than me. So the anger is projected at my sister, and it started off small. It started off with verbal and emotional abuse, right? And then it turned into physical abuse. He was smacking around and shit. One day he comes to me and he says, "Hey, your sister's not my biological daughter, so I'm sending her down to your grandmother's." The only constant thing in my life was ripped away from me, and I no longer had that constant in my life anymore. And so when she was moved down to back with my grandparents, his anger got directed at me. And once again, to start out, mental, emotional abuse. He'd call me names. He would call me names that like now are glorified. He would be like, "You're gay. You're gay." And right, I was 11, 12 years old. Didn't even know what that meant. But I knew it was derogatory because that's how it was used back in the day. And so it really fucked with me. And I had no sense of identity. I was filled with doubt. I didn't know who to trust. I was terrified of authority figures. So life was really chaotic for me. And then it turned into physical. So it started out with slaps on the back of the head, and then it turned to violent. The first occasion that I remember is, don't even remember what happened or why he got so angry, but he walked in the kitchen. I was standing there, and he grabbed me by the throat like Undertaker or Kane, squeezed my neck, and hoisted me above. And he looked at me dead in the eyes and said, "I'm gonna fucking kill you." And that was the first time that I was legitimately scared for my life of my father. I'm here, so obviously I didn't die, but um, it got progressively worse over time. He used to say this thing like, "Go in the backyard and practice falling down." So what that meant was he's gonna kick the shit out of me, and I would go in the backyard and he would throw me from fence post to fence post. We had a pretty big yard, and I would hit the fence, and he'd come down with the elbow to the back of the head. And if you know anything about that, it causes concussions. And he would do the same thing in the garage, and it just got very violent to the point where my dad just looked at me as a problem. So I ended up kicking me out, and I went down with my grandparents back down to Maryland. And for that year that I was gone away from my dad, I was trying to identify who I was, my existence, right? I didn't have this like crazy traumatic experience when I was with my grandparents, but I always had this longing to figure out who I was and why I was. And so I wanted to be in the military in some form or fashion. Didn't understand the concept of the military because I was never really raised around guns or all that crazy hoorah shit. But um, my life kind of went off that path, and I said, "Hey, I want to be a pastor. I want to go to Bible school." There's a very influential televangelist that I followed when I was a kid, and I wanted to go to his school. And my dad said, absolutely not. You're joining the military. Him and I fought for a while, and I ended up bending to his will. And he drove me down to the recruiting station. And people always ask me, why did you join the Army? And I said, well, it's because that was the only office that was open. But that was the only office that treated me like a human being. So I signed a contract that day on my birthday. On my 18th birthday was my first day in basic training. When my dad dropped me off at MEPS, which is pretty much where you get dropped off to get shipped out to basic training. He didn't say I love you. He didn't say goodbye. He didn't say good luck. I shut the door and he literally drove the fuck off. And it absolutely reaffirmed every thought that I had in my brain that he just didn't care about me, that I was no longer his problem. So like I said, I joined the Army in July. Well, first day of basic was July 11th, 2006, my 18th birthday. And basic training and AI, or my advanced individual training and airborne school, all easy for me because I lived in that chaos, right? I was used to being screamed at. I was used to the craziness, running around, doing all this madness. So it really didn't bother me too much. But I had this like little lingering thing in the back of my brain. So after my airborne school, I get assigned to the 173rd Airborne Brigade out of Italy, and there's no drinking age over there. So the first weekend I get there, I get absolutely hammered, and that would start a 5-month bender. I was 18 years old, already drinking, already getting shit canned. If you know anything about the brain or the male brain doesn't actually finish developing to the age of 23. So I'm still a certified kid. And I come up on my first deployment, and we go to this really hot, contentious area in Afghanistan. And I just had no will to live. I didn't want to die, but just didn't have a will to live. So I was taking a few extra risks that I normally wouldn't take. It was a 15-month deployment. We get back from that deployment, and I'm not even half an hour off the plane. I'm back in my room getting shit canned, and that relapse, whatever you choose to call it, lasted for about a year. I met a woman, and I fell in love with her. But I didn't understand the concept of trust, right? A blanket gave my trust. So her and I were together for about a year. And on my second deployment with the same unit, I found out that she was cheating on me. So that this starts this trend of trusting people with zero validation. And I get back from that deployment. Once again, I had nobody to live for, right? Like I didn't give a shit. I had nobody to live for. I went on R&R, which is our leave. And for that 18 days, I wasn't sober a single day. Like I drank so much that on the way back to Afghanistan, I was still drunk. I didn't care. I had no will to live. I didn't want to die, but I just didn't want to live. So get back and from that deployment, and like I said, like last time, half an hour off the bus or off the plane, and I'm back in my room drinking. Short time after we get back, I meet my daughter's mother, and once again, blanket trust to somebody I didn't know. We got married at a young age. I was about 22 when we got married, and we got married because she was pregnant, and so she got pregnant on the way to Fort Bragg. I ended up getting stationed with the 82nd, and life was crazy. I had this kid on the way, and I knew that I didn't want to be the dad that my dad was to me. And so before my daughter was born, I got deployed in 2012. And I wasn't able to come home for the birth, which was pretty traumatic. It sucked. But when I got back home, I had this little kid, right? This little baby girl. And I was like, I don't want her to see what I had to see growing up. But I started doing those actions, not the violent ones, but I was drinking all the damn time. And then I got hit with the proposition, hey, if you don't stop drinking, I'm gonna leave. I didn't want to feel the pain because I've already lost people in my life. And so I said, I'm not going to drink, but I wasn't doing it for me. I was doing it for somebody else. And so I get on my last deployment and with the 82nd, and I had this time to think, and I went into this downward spiral of like self-doubt and self-manipulation, self-sabotage, and I ended my marriage. I and in a way, in a fashion which I alienated myself So I get back from that deployment, and I didn't have anybody to stay sober for. My family, I didn't have them. My actual family, I didn't have them. So I went back to drinking again. And I met a woman. Once again, here we go. We're falling in the same trap again. And I was drinking in that time, and she said, you got to quit drinking or I'm leaving. And I was like, well, I don't want to feel that pain, so I'm going to quit drinking for you. And we were together for about 4 years. I had this weird thing where I have that 3 year that 3 year shit where I'm in a relationship in a marriage for 3 years and it just goes sour. Don't know why, but uh, at year three, I found out she's cheating on me. I'm stationed in Alaska at this time, and she's with me, and my health is going downhill. Right, I'm sober because not by choice, but just because she said I don't want you drinking, um, and my health is going downhill because I have traumatic brain injury that's untreated and undiagnosed, and so I start taking my health a little bit seriously. After I found out she's cheating on me, I said I have nobody to be sober for, so I relapsed. Actually, today in 2018 was that relapse, and that relapse lasted for a month. And at the end of that month, May 30th, I made the decision that I'm gonna end it. I'm done. I can't do this no more. This life sucks. And I justified it all. But I had this plan, and I said, if somebody, one person picks up the phone, when I call, I'll stop. Not one single person did, but I called the people that I knew were in different time zones that wouldn't pick up. So I did it to myself, man. I put myself in that position. And so nobody picked up. I made 32 phone calls, and I justified that in my brain. I said, I made 32 phone calls. Nobody cares about me. So I put my truck in a tree at 70 miles an hour while I was completely intoxicated. And when I woke up in the hospital, I realized something had to change. Something in me had to change. I just didn't know what it was. So I checked myself in intensive outpatient or inpatient. Sorry, I went inpatient, and I stayed there for 11 days. And I learned good things and CBT and all that stuff. And I ended up getting out and continuing my career in the Army. But I was facing medical separation. And so I ended up getting medically retired in 2019. But in the time of getting divorced and getting out of the Army, I met another woman. There's a trap. There's a goddamn trap again. And I met this woman. And this time I looked at her as this project that I can fix her because she's got all these problems. I can't even fix my goddamn self. So how can I fix somebody else? I can't. So we started this relationship very rocky from the start. I was getting out of the Army. Anybody who understands transition out of the Army at a low rank, I was a staff sergeant, so it was a little bit harder, a lot easier than some of the other guys, but a lot harder. And so I ended up getting out of the Army, and July 4th, 2019. I fed myself the lie the last time that I was good enough to drink. And so I looked at my then wife, and this is the third wife, by the way, and she said, "Do you think you're okay to drink?" And I said, "Yeah." And I justified every reason why I thought that I was okay to drink. And I told her, I said, "I'm just gonna have one." And she said, "Okay." Well, one turned to five. I told her I was good. And the next night, five turned to 10, and one was too much. 1,000 was never enough for me, and I just kept going, dude. Moderation was not in my books, and I don't understand moderation. I still don't. Um, but that relapse would last for 6 months, and at the end of that 6 months, I found myself in jail. I found myself in jail on an assault charge. And I was sitting in jail and I was blaming everybody for my problems. I was blaming my wife because, she could have stopped me from drinking that night. Well, nobody could have. I blame my roommate because he was bigger than me and he could have choked me out. But reality is nobody could have. Nobody could have stopped me from doing what I was going to do. I was on a path of self-destruction. And so in the midst of blaming everybody and like bitching and complaining about it, one of my cellmates, an old native man, looks at me and he says, "Viking," because I look like a Viking. He said, "Viking, shut the fuck up. You did this to yourself. You created all your problems. When you accept that, you'll be okay." So at first I was like, "Nah, he don't know me. He don't know my story." But then some crazy nexus happened in my brain, and I said, he's right. And when I accepted that, my bail got posted the same day. Electronic monitoring came, put ankle bracelets on me, and I got released from jail. And that's where my recovery started. And uh, the judge that was overseeing my therapeutic court, because I was in therapeutic court, which down here it would be called drug court, mental health court, what have you. But I was in a veterans court where we work directly with the VA. And the judge looked at me and he said, "Why is this different than any other time you've tried to get sober?" And I said, "Because I got to do it for myself. Because if I do it for somebody else, I'm going to fail. God forbid my family leaves me. I have to do it for myself because I won't stay sober any other way." And fast forward, I graduated. I became a peer support specialist. I went and got certified in MRT, which is a moral reclamation therapy. I love it. It saved my life. And then fast forward to this December, Chris knows this story. Early December, my wife walked out with the kids. And I had to sit in my own shit and my own uncomfortable feelings with no explanation as to why, and work through that and stay sober, because I had only me to stay sober for, and I did. And I ended up moving to West Virginia, and that was the best move for me. And here I am. Here I am, still sober 3 years later, working my program, trying to be, be the best version of me that I can be. Thank you for letting me share.
Thanks for sharing.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, man. I've told you this before, and no problem at all repeating it. You're one of the strongest human beings that I know, and I am absolutely honored to call you a friend and a brother in the trenches. I think the absolute world of you. I think you're incredible. Thank you for sharing, man. You're one of the best people I know in my life, and I appreciate you.
Thank you, Chris. In that time in December, there's very few people that I trusted. And Chris was one of those people. And so I'm absolutely honored to be sitting here and on this panel with him. He's one of the best human beings I know.
Thank you, man.
Even when I was saying the same shit over and over again.
Derick, if you want to share, man, go for it.
Okay. I'm gonna keep it kind of tight. Like I shared earlier, abusive father. He had his trauma. Very abusive to me, my mother, my brother. My mother was our type of individual that she was strong. They were both strong in their own right. But she could be manipulative and use that guilt trip system, which I don't appreciate. So dealt with childhood trauma. Abusive father. Saw my mother get beat up. Saw my dad pull a gun on my brother. I got beat up. Okay. Because where I'm going is, for me, okay, the trauma, all that, but I want to get to the hope. That's what I want to do for me. That's what I'm gonna share about. All right. I was a runner for my cousin. He's running the premier drug dealers up and down the East Coast. I was a runner. I was a driver. Worked at Burger King. Still got good grades in school. Sometimes I was a attention seeker. I like jokes. I like funny. Humor is the gift that God gave me. So not only did I do my work, but I wanted to be funny. How else did I take control in my childhood? Well, back in the day, there was these big satellite dishes, and you moved them by pressing in a code. And sometimes there would be scrambled porn, and sometimes it would come in and you could see it. And then sometimes I would stay up late at night, and they used to be called soft porn, which would be on Cinemax. That's how my addiction started, through the trauma. I wanted to control something. So I controlled it by watching sex, watching porn, and masturbating at a young age. That's how I had power and control in something. They tell us in treatment, before you even take your first substance, the disease of addiction is there through some type of trauma, some type of learned behavior. I learned through that trauma, through that unpredictability, that uncertainty of a childhood, that this is something that I can control. Didn't like my father very much. So when I turned 18, I was gone. Military. Could have graduated early, but I wanted to walk with my folks. AP classes. So that last semester, I was hall monitor, chilling. Got on the microphone. Hey, all the big booty girls coming to the office. Got ISS in school suspension, but it was fun. I was funny. I liked humor. Humor and masturbation and porn got me through from not trying to kill my dad. My brother, 12 years older than me, so he was gone. When he was 18, I was like, what, 12? So he was gone. But I love my brother. The incident when he put a gun on my brother over money. My mom, my dad, my mom and my sister-in-law, my sister, I call her my sister. The boys was there, my nephews, they my brothers. I helped raise them. If that trigger wouldn't have went off that day, I thank God it didn't. And the reason I say I thank God, because this God has been interceding in my life through a lot of this trauma that I didn't know he was there until I knew he was there. So that's one instance that he was there. Like, he did not let that trigger go off. There was nothing, anything else could have happened. Oh, it was a coincidence. Or he didn't. Nah, for me, it was God. God didn't want that trigger to go off because he knew that Mr. Ernest Fields could not come back from that collapse. Just wasn't going to happen. So God intervened there. My mother didn't want us to leave. She stayed. She took it. She showed her strength. She showed her strength. You don't know why? I asked her, why didn't you leave? Because I didn't want to keep moving my children from this place to this place and this place. That's my house. Damn. Okay. This is verse example of a strong woman that I saw. She put her kids first. She didn't want to keep moving us from house to house to house to house to house. So God worked there. Went to Iraq, January of 04, 14 months. Got back in 05, went back in 06, another 12 months. First tour, lost a couple brothers, saw them die. Well, I was part of the explosion. I woke up in the TMZ, Tactical Medical Zone. I couldn't hear. I was out. I got blown up into a truck. My brothers is gone. I'm still here. Didn't know God had a plan then. Didn't understand why my brothers had to go, but that's not my department. My department is I'm still here. I got works to do. Didn't understand that back at that time. All right, moving forward, I got tired. I got my E5 sergeant. I wasn't going back over there again. Went to Korea, drank, shot, partied, whatever. Came back stateside. That's when it really started to hit, because through all that time, since I could remember trauma to the time I got back stateside, there was no processing. There was no talking to anyone, because my family is built on perception. The Fields family got to look good on the outside. No matter how much the inside of the tabernacle of the church of the home is messed up, the outside got to look good to be that presentation to the world. Bump all that. I started having suicidal ideations. I started to commit suicide, took my life, tried to take my life twice, got saved again. Because I'm supposed to be here doing this work. Moving forward, met my kid's mom. Still didn't know about PTSD. I'm fighting back and forth between my unit and trying to get out. Got out honorably. You got that right. Took 2 years, got my compensation, got what I was supposed to. That was a fight, because they're going to poke and prod you. Okay. So there's military trauma, there's childhood trauma, and there's military trauma. Didn't know that. Broke that anger and rage broke up my family. I was very abusive to my kid's mother. That broke us up. Now we're family. God again. In that time, I was still addicted to sex, women. I liked it. Still in my kid's life, back and forth, moved from San Antonio to Round Rock, Texas, which is a subset of Austin, Texas. My kids I would drive down there to get them. They would come up. It was good. Still liking sex. Now went from phone chat, because you used to hook up on girls on the phone, to now, ooh, what? You telling me I can pay for an hour and a half at whatever price I want and get whatever I want without all the drama? You got that right. Sign me up. And we can pop pills and we can play and we can party. You got that right. What happened? Crack cocaine stuff. I was an addict that tried any and everything that made me feel good doing sex because I wanted sex to be the best it could be in that moment. So I tried every drug, crack, cocaine stuff. I lost 2 years with my son, lost a relationship with my daughter, lost 2 apartments, lost cars, lost family, lost trust, homeless, nothing, sleeping in the street, sleeping in my car, stinking, nothing. We speeding this up because I'm trying to get you to understand. I overdosed on my couch. You know what I heard when my soul was slipping out of my body and I felt it? I heard my name 3 times from God Almighty, Derick. 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 I woke up, still didn't stop, but that was God again because I'm supposed to be here doing these works. Still didn't stop. Got in a fight with a guy. He caught me. Still here because I realized I could have hit my head on the concrete and been gone. Or when I got up, I could have killed him because I was mad because with the whole PTSD thing and the military training, I could have killed him. Still here. I relapsed. I don't know. How many treatment facilities? I don't know. But what I do know is that by the grace of God, I am here. I'm supposed to be here. And I have no shame in talking about what I want to talk about because I'm not going to give the power to it anymore. I'm an addict in recovery. I was abusive. I've been abused, hurt people, I paid for sex. I lied to my family. I almost killed my mother in the context of she told me all the running around she was doing to put money in my account was killing her. And she already had pre-health conditions herself. She got out of work at 1995 because she had panic attacks and anxiety, all the trauma she'd been through. I'm killing my mom. Lost trust with my brothers. And I'm stuck at this gate. And I'm stuck in this basement. Still here. The relationship with my parents is better. I'm getting the relationship back with my brothers. I made amends. And you know what? I met my wife when I didn't have shit. I met my wife in a treatment facility. She was an intern. If that ain't God, I don't know what is. A woman that loved me in spite of having everything in a car that's out front. Listen, all I'm here to do is, trauma, mental health, physical health, spiritual growth. Absolutely. But my purpose on this podcast is hope. Hope that it can be done. And joy and freedom can come if you want it. I want it and I work for it daily. I work for it daily because I have to be aware that this world, this fleshly stuff wants to destroy me. I can't let it because I have a responsibility to y'all, to everyone here, that if you're going through anything mental, physical, spiritual, it's okay. There's different ways of healing, but positive ways. They be like, what's recovery for you, Derick? It's inspirational change moving forward. What are you talking about? Recovery ain't exclusively to mental health and substance use. I brushed my teeth today. That's recovery. I took a hot shower. That's recovery. Had a good hot meal. That's recovery. I get to tell my son I love him. I get to kiss on my daughter. I get to go help my dad cut grass. That's recovery. Inspirational change moving forward. The small things that I took for granted. Being here with y'all is recovery. Telling y'all that I love y'all is recovery. I just want to get to the hope part because the trauma is there, but the hope is now and in the future. So that's basically what I wanted to share. I wanted to share the hope part because everybody, I got the trauma. Yeah, I got that too. Man, I got the homelessness. Yeah, I got that too. Man, I got the disease of addiction. I got that too. Anxiety, got that too. You stink. I did. Got that too. Lived on the bridge. Got that too. Lived in the car. Got that too. Lived in the shelter. Got that too. Got it all. But what's most important is the hope. I got that too. Got that too. And I'm not going to give that up. And I just want to share that because, like, dang, you been through all that, Derick? Yep, still here. So, listen, ain't nobody tell you today that they love you. We do. And that's all I got.
Derick, holy shit, man.
Yeah, man. Wow.
If there was one person that I could point out and say that it works if you work it and you just keep coming back, that's you. Right. And
Absolutely.
I admire you even more than I did before because you're a wrestling fan.
Absolutely, baby. Too sweet. You know how we do.
Yes, sir.
Derek, I have a question though, real quick.
But thank y'all. I appreciate that. Same to y'all too. I love you, man.
So,
Yeah, man.
I have a question real quick for you, Derek. What do you think was the absolute turning point in your life where you decided to, start working on things and becoming a better person?
Honestly, I had to take inventory over my life. Like I'm in the NA fellowship, but I go to any fellowship because I'm an open person. They teach us open-mindedness. It was the inventory I had to take on myself. And it's the inventory for me, for Derick, that I had to see how God was still blessing me. I can't lie. That's that. Listen, I got two children by the same woman. I'm a recovering addict, and I didn't have nothing. That's a hard sell. That's a hard sell. And I got a beautiful wife that loves my two children. Me and my kids' mom have a great relationship. That's my family. I love her husband. I love their little girl. I treat her like she's mine. That's what it is for me. Like, I have to honor that. I have to honor that. If I don't, for me, I have to honor that. I can't keep mocking or spitting. I just can't. That's the turning point. I had to take inventory. And like, man, okay, God. And I'm only talking about me. Okay, I see you. I acknowledge you, and I gotta honor that. That's what it was. That keeps me. It's the NA, it's the fellowship, it's the literature, and all aspects of literature, and it's God for me and y'all. I see God I see that in y'all. Y'all are miracles. We all are miracles because we could have been dead and gone, but we not because we're here to do this, to provide that hope for that person that think there isn't any. Because that's what it is. That I have that. It's a responsibility to do that, and I can't. I don't want to say can't not. Just too negative. I have to do it, and do it with joy and vigor and just a smile on my face. So I don't want to take up too much time because Chris got to go. Yeah.
Really quick, Derick, I want to just kind of echo what Sean said. You're an incredible human being, very inspirational, and I think you're one of the most genuine people I think I've ever had a conversation with. So thank you so much for sharing your story, because there's a lot in there that you mentioned that has pieces in my story too. So I just wanted to say how much I appreciated you sharing.
Thank you, and I love you, brothers, man. And like I said, you go ahead and go. Yeah. So, but I love y'all, all of y'all.
Love you too, bro. So I guess to really tell the story right, my trauma started when I was about 4 years old, and uh, basically my mom was unfaithful to my dad. I remember driving my dad, or not driving, taking my dad to this guy's house that my mom was fooling around with at 4 years old. And I remember every detail. I remember the car, and I remember what his name was. So fast forward to 8 years old, when the divorce finally happened, when my sister was born. My thought was always, as an adult, that my mom just waited until my sister was born to call it quits with my dad, because she wanted a daughter. She wanted somebody that she can mold to be just like her, that she could keep under her thumb and turn her into the person that she is herself. So fast forward into like middle school, we moved around a lot after the divorce. I run out of fingers at how many times we moved, because of how many relationships my mom was in. I've lived from Clearwater to New Jersey, and I'll get to the New Jersey part here soon. But middle school, I went to two different middle schools in 1 year. Didn't really have a stable amount of friends. It was mainly just me, my friend Clayton, and maybe one or two people from school. But I always internalized a lot of my pain. And that pain really started in middle school, and I started noticing how bad it was getting, because I wasn't allowed to take any electives, because the standardized testing basically made it to where I couldn't get into any electives, so I couldn't socialize more. So going to ninth grade, self-harming became something that I was really bad with. I always wore this insane clown posse red sweater every single day. Um, and I always covered up my arms because I didn't want anybody to see, what I did to myself. I had ace bandages on my arms like every other day. My mom never noticed. She never saw me, and it was mainly because she was just too busy on what relationship that she was going to move on to. So fast forward a little bit into ninth grade, I attempted to take my life. I had the means, I had a plan, I was ready to just go. My brain just couldn't comprehend pain, and I just didn't really know how else to deal with the pain I was dealing with at the time. So I packed a rope in my backpack, was getting ready to tie it onto the balcony, and somebody had caught wind of it because they saw it when we were in PE. And resource officer tackled me to the ground before I could do it. So that was my first experience with outpatient therapy. The therapist that they stuck me with was a gambling addiction therapist. Was with her for only 2 sessions. Was probably one of the most useless experiences of my entire life, because 14 years old, I mean, that was well over 10 years ago now. So mental health resources aren't like they are now. We didn't really know what suicide and depression was and all that stuff when we were that young, or that many years ago now. So it was a joke. Resources were a joke. I clung on to music. Music was something that helped me escape and just get away from everything. And one of my biggest inspirations is Chester Bennington. He was one of the biggest reasons that I do what I do. I wear his hat. I have his logo and signature tattooed on my arm. Like, he got me through some of the worst times of my life. And again, fast forward to 10th grade, I went to 3 different high schools in 1 year. I think I was at a high school at one point for 3 months and went to another high school because we moved again. Again, going through high school, barely any friends, always kept to myself. I didn't really start breaking out of my shell till maybe like late 10th grade. I used to have this monster necklace that had over like 300 and something monster caps. Not all drank by me, but a good portion of them were. And I would always get interaction from people, and it was weird because I'm not used to that. And that's when I met this girl, Natasha. She came down right before she was going to basic training. We knew each other for, I want to say 5 or 6 years at the time, and then we finally met. And I gave her the necklace. I don't know why. I think I was just young and dumb and just, just trying to create some kind of a connection with a female. And it turned into nothing. She ended up leaving me, I think, a couple days later because, she was like, oh, I want to try this relationship with you and everything. She's going to basic and everything. I didn't know what that entailed. I never experienced love because my mom never showed it in a healthy way. And I thought that was love. I was really young and didn't know better. So I gave her the necklace and bought her all this stuff. And just, I remember her when she broke up with me. I wouldn't consider it much of a relationship, but that was heartbreak that I was all too familiar with. So there was once I turned 18, my mom basically pushed me into going to college. She was like, oh, well, right after high school, you got to go right into college, right away. Like, don't even think about it. You just need to go. So I went out of her wishes, much like Sean's story where his dad forced him into the military. My mom basically forced my hand into college. So I went to college and was doing okay for a little while. Me and my mom were going to this college together. It was a community college. When I turned about 20 years old, she was leaving for New Jersey out of nowhere. Another failed relationship, and she found another relationship that would require her to move out of the state and, put herself first because she never put her kids first. I was left with no home. I had to go live with somebody at the time I considered a best friend. Kind of kept that cycle of moving around. I went from his house back to my dad's house to another friend's house back to my dad's house. That's when I tried going to wrestling school. I felt great about it. I was losing weight. I was doing really good in classes and had a lot of untreated trauma that made me fail in wrestling school. I don't do good with getting yelled at. And that was something because of my dad, because of my mom. My mom always made me afraid of my father. Like, I grew up with her always saying, oh, well, don't do this because your father, this, and this, and just made up all these lies about him to make me terrified of him. So when I tore my shoulder, I'll never forget the day that I came back from the hospital after surgery. My dad just looks me right in the eye. He's like, I told you it was going to happen. No support, not how did the surgery go, not how are you, nothing. And for everybody who knows my story, Sean, you know my story as well as anybody who's in the group, knows how much of a narcissistic human being my mom is. And my dad is just very emotionally numb to like anything. Like, I can't have conversations with him about a lot of things. But my mom sold me this whole book of lies saying how great New Jersey was going to be, and that I could save up money and, just basically build a foundation, find that stability and security that I've been aching for basically my entire life because I've never had security. I never had stability. So I moved up to New Jersey. I call it running away now that I can process it properly. I never wanted to call it that because I thought it was just me pressing the reset button. It was me running away from trauma that wasn't treated. So a couple months go by, everything's pretty content in Jersey with my mom. And then she falls back into her narcissistic ways, and I'm starting to have to pay, half of all the bills, which, as an adult, you pay the bills, whatever, right? That's perfectly fine. But it was getting to the point where my mom was taking like 90% of my money and overcharging me for a basement. So I remember it like it was yesterday. It's firmly burned into my brain. Sitting there on my bed, I'm pretty sure I was playing my PlayStation at the time. Mom came downstairs and she just started screaming, like for no reason at all. 3 straight hours. I took every word, every insult, everything that she said to me. I just internalized and just took it. I didn't walk away. I didn't react. I didn't respond. Nothing. And I remember after that day, I wrote a suicide note on Facebook. And when I wrote it, I didn't press post yet, but when I wrote it, I was just like, why are you doing this? Why are you at this point? Why did you let your mom get you to this point again? You've been doing so good for all these years and everything else, and you don't want to do this. I pressed post, and 5 minutes later, I rethank it, and I deleted it. An hour goes by, and 2 people reached out to me. One was my tattoo artist, Rochelle, who she said, "Hey, I just want you to know that I saw your Facebook post and I saw that you deleted it, and I just want you to know that I'm here and you don't have to go through this alone." The second person that reached out to me was my brother, Santi. He, much like yourself, Derick, very, very big with God, very big relationship with God, and he walked me through everything that I was feeling and just wanting to see me do better and wanting to see that progress and growth. So I went to go to therapy, and first 2 sessions, I couldn't look at my therapist in the eyes. I was crying both sessions, and I just couldn't process anything that I was feeling. So after those 2 sessions, that I got all those emotions out, we talked through the suicide attempt, we talked through the self-harming, and just she helped me find that light in myself that I didn't know existed. She helped me discover that inner child that was just bruised and beaten to almost death, that needed to heal, that needed protection. And she woke that light inside of me, and I basically came to the decision of needing to leave Jersey and getting away from my mom, because my mom, and I told my therapist this, my mom was going to drive me to suicide. And it wasn't out of attention. It wasn't out of, I want to be checked in somewhere. It was, I firmly believe she was going to bring me to that point. So coming back down to Florida, first conversation I had with my grandparents, who were notoriously judgmental throughout my entire life, just always judging my appearance, judging the music I listened to, just everything about me. My grandfather said to me, "I didn't know what to expect when you came back." And it kind of hit me like really hard, because just like I expected a little more support coming back, because of he knows how bad my mom is, and just kind of like a backhand. It's just like, "Oh, I didn't know what to expect you coming back down to Florida." So I started a job. It was just an AC job, very low paying. I just kind of, trying to pay bills that I could. And then I finally got into tech data, which is where I'm at now. And I sought out my first therapist since I left New Jersey. She was awful. To our conversation earlier, first session that I had with her, she didn't write anything down. She didn't talk me through any of my emotions, nothing. Second session we had, same thing, except I had my first anxiety attack. I was living at my grandma's house because my dad hadn't paid the water bill. And first thing that she says, "Oh, well, would you take pills?" Like, I was just kind of in the back of my head, like it threw me off of what I was feeling and just kind of like, no, no disrespect to anybody who takes pills for their mental health, because there are some people that need it. I just told her, I just need someone to listen to. I don't want pills thrown at me like our first 5 minutes of the session. And I remember right in the middle of my anxiety attack, she cuts me off and says, that's all the time we have. Mid sentence, just sitting there in tears. I couldn't drive because my hands were shaking so bad. And she basically kicked me to the curb and said that, contact this number tomorrow. I'm all booked up for the next couple weeks. Like, didn't show any compassion for anything I was going through. So that was my perception on therapy for a little while, because it's just like, what the hell am I supposed to do? Because I tried the therapist in Florida and she was horrible, and I gave up on myself. And funny enough, a NAMI representative came to our job, and I asked him after everybody left, because I was kind of still uncomfortable talking about anything I was going through. And I said, "Hey, man, like, I had a really bad experience with a therapist. How do I go about looking for one?" And he's like, the first thing that you want to do in every kind of therapist is just ask questions, what they cover, what they'll help you with, and just anything specific that you want to know. Make sure you ask those questions. That's when I met Jess, who I have now. It's been almost 3 years, and she's the most amazing therapist I've ever met in my life. Right before I met her, somebody who I met was very close to my heart, Amy. She was one of the first women that I've met that I could actually like have conversations with. We shared sunset pictures with each other all the time, and just kind of, try to get each other through the day. Little did I know how sick she was. She went into surgery, didn't come out. And then the pandemic happened, and I couldn't, we couldn't see a body because of the pandemic, and that whole fiasco happened. The year after that, Santi passed away. And Santi, to me, was the reason. I mean, I know there's willpower, of course, but he is the reason that I've made it to today. He's the reason that I keep pushing forward and doing all that I do, because I started the mental health movement page on Facebook because of him, and started the podcast right after he passed away. And if there's one thing about my story that I can share with anybody, is that healing is possible no matter what part of trauma you're in. And that I want to echo Derick's point too, that there's always hope in places that you can't see. I was supposed to be just another number, just another statistic on whatever website you find suicide numbers on. And I'm glad that I'm here today and being able to share, a summary of my story with people, and be here with you guys and share a piece of myself, because there's a lot that so many go through that I went through. I don't want to see that happen to anybody else. So thank you for allowing me to share what little summary that I had.
Thank you for sharing, brother. From both of y'all. Thank y'all.
Yeah. Thank you, Chris. I appreciate you, man.
Yeah, thank you for sharing.
Appreciate you both.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Trent.
You're one of the strongest people I know.
I appreciate you, man.
Yeah, y'all both are. Y'all are, man, your resilience and your strength. Listen, man, that gives me hope too. It puts a smile on my face. It puts a smile on my face, because y'all got works too. Y'all working right now. You know what I mean? So I'm just honored to be here. Really am, with you brothers and sisters.
We're grateful to have you here with us, man.
Absolutely. So, Chris, I'm going to ask you the same thing I asked Derek. And Sean, I'm going to ask you too, because I love asking people this question. So, same thing I asked Derek. What, was the turning point of your life, and where did you, Was it when you started finding hope, and where did you find hope from? Was it when you first met your therapist, or earlier than that, maybe?
So the first time that I found hope was my very first therapist, Darlie Jacobs, and I'll never forget her. In New Jersey, was she helped me connect to music in a way that I've never connected with music before. She showed me different ways of looking at music to express myself in ways that maybe words couldn't possibly express. She helped me discover what boundaries were. Um, she helped me find that light within myself. So I'd probably say about 2017, 2018, before I came back down to Florida, is when I think the turning point in my life began.
How about you, Sean?
I'd have to say, well, there's a lot of times in my life where I had hope and where there was a little light shining through the cracks. One of the times was when I met my music therapist. I never told you guys about this. I didn't share this in my story, but I did music therapy as a form of my recovery from my TBI, um, where I would go into a room, learn an instrument, and play. But my music therapist went from being my therapist to being my friend. And I was able to talk to her about real life shit. I mean, we would at the end of at the end of our session, she would keep me in there for an hour and I wouldn't even touch an instrument, dude. I would just sit there and process shit. And she seen me at my worst. She came and she seen me when I was an outpatient or when I was an inpatient because the room where we did our classes was right next to the music therapy room. So she would pull me out and talk to me, and she was one of the people that I regard with the utmost respect ever. And so that was one of them. And then, the faith in humanity when I went to vet court. um I felt like I had nothing left, dude. I felt like I had lost everything. And just the whole treatment team that I had there and sat in front of me and said, dude, it's gonna be rough, but it's gonna be worth it in the end. That's another thing that gave me hope.
So I want to ask y'all because it seems like for Sean and Chris, you found like a lot of inspiration and hope through music therapy, but for Derek, you said it was through your faith. So I want to ask you guys, how does somebody like go about finding something similar to those? Because I know, everybody's gonna have something that gives them hope. How does somebody go about finding that for them personally?
Everybody's different, right? We're all different, right? Chris found inspiration through music. Derek found inspiration through God. I found inspiration in other things. You got to find what works for you, and you got to hold on to it like it's like it's your last dying breath. Even if even if everything else in your life falls to shit and it goes away, you got that one thing that's going to keep you coming back no matter what it is.
Yeah, I agree with Sean. Just whatever works for you. I mean, besides music, I had movies to crawl into. I every conversation I have with people, my brain is like wired to like pick up one word or like maybe one phrase. I'm like, oh, that reminds me of this movie, and I quote movies and cartoons like nobody's business. Like sometimes I feel insane. I'm not gonna lie to you. Um, and just comedy was always something that resonated in my brain. Just any kind of movies that I could dig into and I could sit there and quote. Same with music. Music obviously was really big for me. I crawled really hard into, and no pun intended, I crawled really hard into Linkin Park's music. Um, they got me through some of the darkest times in my life because music heard me before my parents heard me. They helped raise me. My parents, yeah, they provided for me and kept the roof over my house, but there was no stability. There was no security. There was, dad just not being able to process really anything from an emotional level. And then you have a narcissistic mom who tells you that you're the problem all the time. So like Sean said, it's different for everybody. You just got to find what works for you. There's no wrong answer at coping.
Purpose. Like, what is a positive purpose? What is something that can get you outside of yourself? Humor, laughter, funny, comedy is definitely is I need that too, as my faith, of course, but I need that laughter, that humor, that silliness, that goofiness, just to be like, because it's very hard to laugh and frown at the same time. You look weird, you know.
Looks like you
It's
stepped on
hard,
a lemon, bro.
but it's hard. I don't want to laugh. you just look a little different, a little weird. I just feel like they can't occupy the same space at the same time. So laughter for me is definitely huge. I love my music, keep my faith, and that's the purpose. Service, like doing this is being outside of myself, just being of service, being able to give back, like being here, doing this with y'all, like. But it is different for everyone. But as long as it's positive, and it's positive, it's positive, it's positive. I just want to stress positive, positive resources, positive coping, positive change, just helping you grow, and purpose. Yeah, and service. Just being outside of yourself. Yeah.
I think one other thing is like surrounding yourself with like-minded people that when you're down, they can pick you up, and when they're down, you can pick them up, right? Because there's too much of the in the world where we see somebody down and we're like, they got it, they're good. But you surround yourself with people, like-minded people that are on the same path, maybe not the same path, walking down the road. You've got a partner. You got a partner in crime per se, and you got a tribe, and that's what this whole recovery thing is about. It's a tribe, and I'm your local bald Viking.
So I have a question for y'all. Like I said earlier, like one thing for me was like just opening up and asking for help. So how do y'all recommend people? Because you know how like let's say like I'm going through something, and somebody just sees that, and let's say they send me a text, "Hey man, you all right? How you doing?" I'm gonna be like, "Yeah, I'm fine. Don't worry about it, man. It's no worries. I don't want to bother you." How does somebody get over that? Because I think that is the hardest thing to do when it comes to starting to get better.
It's called the gift of desperation, wanting it so goddamn bad that sorry about my language, sorry about the GD, Derek. I'm sorry. I'll try to refrain from that. You gotta want it so bad that nothing else matters. I mean, that's what it was for me. I don't know about anything else about you guys, but for me, like nothing else mattered. I needed some help. If somebody comes to me and says, "Hey, look, dude, I need help," I am going to drop everything I'm doing and I'm going to turn to that person. That person gets my full attention because they got to that
One of the
point.
Sorry, Sean, I made to cut you off, bro.
I did it
You got
again.
you.
I did it again. I told you it was going to happen again.
He was just like that.
I told you it was going to
I love it.
happen. Self-fulfilling prophecy. You're good. I'm done.
I was just gonna say, I think one of the biggest misconceptions of just like the stigma of mental health is so many people don't know what it means to be there for somebody. They assume it's just like, okay, you got all this going on, let me offer my unsolicited advice. Most people like myself who have ever been going through anything has been alone. Most of the things I struggled with were alone. And when I was in Jersey, I was completely alone. That was the hardest time of my life, was attempting to take my life and having no support whatsoever. And when you finally have somebody who sees you, and validates what you're going through. You know, that's what being there for somebody means, is validating somebody's experience and not giving advice, but more so trying to give them a perception like, okay, you're feeling this. Is it because of this? Well, instead of thinking of that way, think of it as another season you're going through. You know, just try to not give them advice. Like, just be an ear, be a shoulder for somebody, you know. And I feel so many people just fall into that listen to respond and not listen to understand trap.
Yep.
I agree with it. I agree with everything that y'all said. Yeah, the desperation, absolutely. The like Sean said, or the someone, hey, we can just sit. We ain't got to say anything. We can just sit. Whenever you ready, I'm right here. Some people just want you to listen and just be there. Like, I'm here. I know you need me. I'm here. I'm gonna sit right here. Or let's just watch a movie. Or let's play a puzzle. Do you want to play a puzzle? Do you want to play a game? Do you want to go for a walk? Whatever you need, I'm here. And people be like, you once you do that, people be like, you know what, man? Yeah, I've been going through it. Like, and they'll open up, you know? And it's just, I believe sometimes you just got to put your pride aside, especially as men, because of this mental health discussion that we're having as men. We have to be like, again, I think it goes back to what Sean said, that desperation. Like, I'm putting my pride aside. I need to pick up the phone. I need to call Chris. I need to call Sean. I need to call Trent. I need to be like, hey, brother, I'm not okay. Yeah, man, you got a minute? You know? So, yeah.
Can I say something?
Yes, please.
Go for it, Mike.
Trent, thank you for hosting this. It's been a good time. Sean, Derick, brothers in arms. I'm actually shocked that I'm not the only one. I thought military guys, just suck it up, deal with it. But I'm glad there's others out there that are proceeding. But as far as like communicating, having that person to talk to, Chris, you know more than I do. I'm pretty sure I've called you multiple times at some unreasonable time in the morning. 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. You're sleeping. I call you up. Oh, I'm sleeping. Yeah, I need to talk. And you'd wake up and we'd talk for an hour or two. I'd say, I'm sorry, you go back to bed, but I appreciate you doing all that stuff for me, Chris. And I've said it before I posted on your mental health movement page, and I'll say it again. I'm pretty sure you've helped me more than one of my therapists. VA doesn't really it's took me a while to find my therapist that I'm with now, but until once I found my therapist, it's all good. But until then, Chris, you've helped me through most of it until I found my therapist now, and I'm glad to be friends with you and all that stuff. But Derick, I saved your guys' contacts. Derick, I'd probably text you and ask you some questions and stuff and future references with overseas things, with process how because I'm still undergoing processing with Lost Brothers, and yeah, so I'll definitely be in contact, and I'll have some questions and here and there.
Absolutely, Michael. And thank you for your service too, brother. And thank you for being here.
Oh yeah, I will always support Chris. He started this mental health movement, and he was like, "Hey, go like my page." I'm like, "All right, yeah, I'm in. I'll support you." And then he'll just blow up my Facebook page or feed and stuff, and I was like, and I started reading it after a while. I was like, "Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, okay, that I can relate to that." And then I started following him more, and it's helped out a lot. And yeah, I got back. I had some problems with my stuff to the point where I was in the driveway and I attacked 2 of my friends, 2 police officers, and about 4 or 5 paramedics. That's what was there. But what I saw, it was side of a mountain, and I seen bad guys coming. I was fucking shit up. They took me to some psychiatric facility. They evaluated me. They had me on these meds. I hated those meds. They made me feel like my mind, I couldn't finish my sentences. I would start a sentence with one thing and then end it with another thing. Like, hey, Derek, what are we doing for dinner? Yeah, so about that carburetor that you wanted me to change out. Like I couldn't finish, like, and then my mind would be like, and it was from the meds. It would, like, that's how it would be when I was on the meds. And then the meds changed to something else. And then my therapist, they've had me slowly weaning off of said meds. So currently, right now, I'm not on any more meds. I'm definitely 100% better than what I was. I'm not perfect mental health wise, but
None of
I'm
us are.
definitely a lot better along in the process of healing. Because when that happened, that was like my trigger. When all that stuff happened in the driveway and I was attacking people and all that stuff, that was my trigger. I was like, oh shit. Because before that, it was, yeah, I'll just deal with it. Oh, I'll sleep. I don't go to the hospital. When I get hurt, sleep it off. You'll be fine. I was dealing with it myself. But then I don't know what happened. Switch flipped. And that was the trigger. It's like, oh shit, I need to get better. So I was like just going with the process, doing like taking meds, doing therapy and all that stuff. And then I ran into the things that you guys were talking about earlier with like, oh, some therapists are only like doing it for the paycheck. I dealt with like 2 or 3 of those where it's like, I mean, but I didn't really mind because the VA was covering it. I wasn't fronting no bill. So I was like, but I didn't know that was a thing because I never went through any of that stuff. So I didn't know that was, I thought that was just normal. Me being outside and not actually going through it before. So I didn't know people were actually doing that. And then I found my therapist currently that is different in a good way, where it's like, oh, this person's like relating and talking to me and actually like isn't in this for the money kind of thing. Like that's the therapist I have now.
Hey,
So,
Michael, can I offer you a thought real quick?
Yeah.
All right, 2 things. I was on meds during my suicide attempt, and the meds that I was taking actually amplified those thoughts. I got off of them because it made me feel numb, right? You could have been like, hey, I shot your family. I'd be like, all right, man, like what gauge to use? That's cool.
Yeah, that's literally like, it was just
And
like,
then
I would be like, it was like your body, like, you know how you like your arm falls asleep? Your whole body.
Yep.
Another side effects, I would shit my brains out. Like, I don't know. Oh my God.
Yeah, they do that sometimes. Yeah.
They could have warned me. No one
Nope.
warned.
Nope.
When they first gave me the
Sons of bitches.
man, when they first gave me the meds, they gave me like this thick page packet, this autobiography of what the med side effects are. I wasn't reading that.
No.
Yeah.
And then after a while, after like 2 weeks, I finally flipped through it and read it.
Damn.
Shit your brains out.
That's literally
Reduce sex drive. I was so upset with that one.
Help! Help!
I stopped reading it. I was like, I don't want to get. Oh man, I don't want to read this thing. What? All these damn side effects. The one that was getting me was like the cloudiness. Like I couldn't sleep for a little bit. It took me a while, like to the point where I couldn't sleep. I would have to get up in the morning. I still do to this day. I did this morning. I get up at 4 o'clock every morning, do my workout, take a like 5-10 minute nap, get up for work, push so hard at work where I'm physically exhausted, come home, do some yard work till I'm exhausted, and then I pass out because if I'm not like physically exhausted, I can't like fall asleep. Because then like bad dreams and all that stuff happens and all that stuff. So it's like I just push myself physically beyond my limits each day just so I can get to sleep, get up and do it all over again. Yeah, like it's just a process, and I'm getting better with it. I mean, Chris knows me. Like, I still drink, but my drinking now currently is a lot. Like, I can't cut off cold turkey for some reason, but my drinking now, it's still me drinking, but it's a lot better than the drinking I used to be, where it was like a couple bottles and a couple cases of beer. Now it's more of like just a few beers here and there.
Yeah, I'm never gonna tell somebody that they have a problem because my problem is not their problem. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not gonna sit here and say you have a problem drinking. That's a you know. Um, so
Oh yeah,
people
no, I
gotta,
know I have a problem with drinking. And I realized that and it's gotten like I'm slowly and slowly weaning down on how much I drink and what I drink, like when I drink,
yeah.
because it used to be like an everyday thing.
Mhm.
Now it's more of like special occasions, weekends, or something like that,
Yeah.
and not as like the quantity
Yeah.
isn't as much anymore. So that's gotten better too.
There's a trauma form of therapy called EMDR. I don't know if you've looked into that or not.
No, I have not. Hold on. Let me get my pen and paper out. Hold on.
Okay. There's a lot of therapists around the country that do it, and it's helped out just about every single person that I know that has gone through it.
Hold on. God damn it! I lost my pen. It's around here somewhere.
Hey, it'll be in the chat.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
is it?
put it
Oh,
in the
thank you.
chat.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, it's called EMDR. And so essentially it helps with trauma responses. It helps with triggers and stuff like that. So that's just a thought. I'm not, telling you you have to do it, but I know that it's helped out a lot of people that have gone through it.
What is it? There's this like breathing technique that I learned recently where it's like, and even like deep sea free divers,
Yeah.
they'll
Hmm.
do it to release that excess carbon dioxide in their lungs,
Hmm.
but it also it helps relieve like stress relief,
Yeah.
where it's like they completely inhale
Yeah, and then
fully as much as they want, and
and
then
then
take
take a
another
second one.
another
Yep.
sharp breath,
Yep.
and that expands those pockets in your lungs. And then you do a slow exhale, and it
Yep.
releases all that carbon dioxide.
Absolutely. It works. It
Oh,
works.
yeah, oh, 100%. I've been doing that for the last 3 days, man. I'm just walking around the job site smiling as hell, smiling all day. Don't care. But EMDR, is that like an acronym for something? Because
Yes.
Yes.
someone in the military came up with that. Then they love
Correct, sir.
they love their number or letters.
Yes.
EMDR. Okay. Thank you for that. What does that stand for?
Uh,
EMDR?
eye movement response directed, I think. Let me double check. But essentially, it works with rapid eye movements.
Okay.
I'll put it in the chat what it stands for.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. And again, thank you, Trent, Chris, Sean, Derek. Thank you all for being here and hosting this thing
Yeah,
and
man.
putting this on.
Absolutely. Yeah, and definitely reach out. Please do. Please do, brother.
Oh yeah, I'm pretty sure as soon as all this is done, me and Chris are gonna hop on the game here in a minute. 100%. And then we're gonna yell at each other for not camping or not getting a position and us losing a game or something like that.
Eye movement, desensitization, and
Processing therapy.
reprocessing. Yep.
All right. Yeah, I'll check that out for sure.
Michael, thank you for being here. Thank you for your service also. I appreciate
Thanks for
that.
the support.
And thanks for speaking up and telling us a little bit about your story.
Oh, anytime.
We are getting close to running out of time. So I wanted to just ask these gentlemen to do a little self plug. If you guys want to share like your podcast or social media, anything, you can put it in the chat and as well as announce it. That way, everybody will know.
I'll go first.
Sean, you go first. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I'll go first real
No,
quick.
go ahead, Derek. Go ahead, Derek.
Okay. August 8th will be the debut of Play the Tape podcast. I'm working on my website, writing my book. I am trying to it's a podcast similar to this one, where it is a platform of advocacy, support, and community for people with mental health, substance use, and recovery. What we do is we interview all types of people, from professionals to mothers to family members who've been impacted by people with mental health and substance use, and we introduce people who have mental health challenges and substance use disorder. That will be the first episode will be debuting August 8th, and there will be an episode every week. The first season will start August 8th, and there will be 10 episodes, and I'll be dropping one every Tuesday. The first episode will be August 8th. It'll be my story. And like I said, websites coming, books are coming. I'm excited about where I'm at, and you'll see some familiar faces up here too. On my podcast, because there's stories of experience, strength, and hope, and the testimonies need to be shared. And I always let people know the reason that we do this, the reason that I do this, is because there are people in that pit, and we jump down in that pit with you because we know the way out. So I just wanted to share that real quick. And Instagram is Play the Tape 88. Facebook, Derick Fields. I'm working on a TikTok. And so, yeah, that's me. If you want to email me, playthetape88@gmail.com. If you want to send any emails or any suggestions for the show, if you want to be on the show, share your story, your experience, strength, and hope, you can. If you know anybody that wants to, they can. And I also offer anonymity. What's that? Anonymity is a spiritual principle that keeps you anonymous if you choose to be anonymous, because I know some people with their work and the way their life is, they want to remain anonymous. I offer that on my platform. Just because you can't share your likeness or your face or your name doesn't mean your story can't be shared. So, yeah.
Do you have like any resources for
Oh,
people?
yes. There is NAMI, National Alliance on Mental Illness. It is a nonprofit with educational programs, different support groups that they offer. They have a support group, 2 support groups in the Pitt County area. But look up your NAMI.org and look up your county to see if they have one, or the nearest one. There is QPR. QPR is Question, Persuade, Refer. That is a gateway training of suicide prevention. Also look at CIT training. What's that? It's training that law enforcement agencies get. So when there is a substance use or mental health crisis, they can call a CIT trained officer who knows how to de-escalate that situation, call mobile crisis unit or integrative services. That way they can get a licensed social worker, a licensed counselor out there. So we have more options than going in the back of the squad car and sitting in a jail cell. So, and then there's also 988. Instead of dialing 911, if there is a mental health or substance use crisis, you dial 988. They will send a CIT officer. They will send mobile crisis unit. They will send integrative family services. That way we have more than just a jail cell or sitting in the back of a police car with no resources and being triggered even more. So, and then there's I still don't know how to pronounce it. Samsha, Smasha, SAMHSA. That is a substance use and mental health organization too. So many tools, so many resources out there for us. So utilize them. They're for our utilization. So that's all I got.
John, if you want to go.
Okay. Anyways, you can find me on. You can find me in Facebook. You can find me. I had to do it. Anyways.
Okay.
Time to be serious. You can laugh when you're angry, by the way. It sounds psychotic, but you can laugh. Anyway, anyways. All right. All right. If I can be serious for a moment, Lance Storm. Anyways, you can find me on Facebook, Sean Young. I have my podcast page, Sitting with Sean. Instagram, Sitting with Sean. Face or Twitter. I don't really do Twitter. I have one. I don't really use it. You can find me on TikTok at the Beard of West Virginia, WV, because I have the biggest beard in West Virginia. You hear me now? Anyways, you can find me on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple. Sitting with Sean. My podcast is recovery based. It at one point was one of two recovery based podcasts in Alaska, and now I moved. But anyways, I have about actually 65 episodes recorded now, and I have some other another project that is called Extraordinary, where I talk to normal people who live pretty cool lives and do really cool stuff. But my baby is Recover Out Loud, where we talk to people who are in recovery for mental health disorders or substance abuse disorders, and we talk about what it looked like, what happened, and where they're at now with their life. So, thank you for letting me share. Or I will curse you.
I can't help it.
So my podcast is Voice for the Voiceless. I'm on YouTube, Spotify, and iTunes. My Instagram is Mental Health Movement Pod, and my TikTok is Fellow Traveler MH Mental Health. And you can find the Facebook group Mental Health Movement. Really big family, safe space for anybody, whoever needs it. Mike's been in there, Sean's been in there, Derick. If I'm gonna add you to that group too, if you have Facebook. The podcast that I have just kind of talk about all the taboo subjects of mental health, from men's mental health to social norms, and interviewing authors who have done books on mental health. I'm going to have Sean on my podcast here soon, and plenty of other guests in the future as well. So thank you for allowing me to share, and thank you for the opportunity to be here today.
No, thank you guys. I really appreciate all of you. Your stories are amazing, and you guys really gave me inspiration today. I didn't really realize how much I needed this, even though I've already been on the road to recovery. But this is really nice for me because I feel like I've found some more people, and that's a huge thing for me. Just finding people I feel like I can rely on, and all you guys seem like amazing people. So I really appreciate y'all for coming on and sharing your stories.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, it was an honor.
Thank you, man.
Thank you.
Would love to do this again.
Hell yeah.
So
Hearing all your guys' stories. Sorry for interrupting, but I just want to say thank you so much. I really had a good time listening, and I really appreciate everybody sharing their story. It was just really encouraging.
We
Thanks for
appreciate
being
you,
here.
Victoria.
Thank
love
y'all.
I love you too.
Thank y'all so much.
yeah, so I'm gonna go ahead and stop the recording now. But if you guys want to stay, leave, it's totally up to you. I set the meeting time for an hour after schedule ending, just in case people wanted to stay behind and talk, where it's a little bit more private and not recorded. But that's totally up to you guys. So yeah, thank you guys so much. I appreciate it. Thanks for coming out.
Thank you.